and now you're at Google, and just can't say enough great things about Raashi. So anyway, I'll hand it over to you, Raashi. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. And I can't say enough great things about Perry. You guys are lucky to have him as a professor. He definitely inspired my love of marketing, and I think specifically my love of like thinking about metrics and thinking about the right strategy for marketing. So I think that I wanted to really cover a couple of different things, but let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I actually went to undergrad in a subject matter that was very different from marketing. I majored in neuroscience. And so I thought that I was going to go into medical school, and then I realized that I hated studying. And so that wasn't the right place for me. And so from there, I decided to get my graduate degree in marketing. And I did both digital and brand marketing at NYU. And from there, I went to the agency side. So I spent most of my career on the agency side. First place I went to was Razorfish, which was actually, the agency doesn't really exist as much anymore, but it was a digital first, one of the best agencies for building websites and kind of thinking about digital marketing as a whole. And then I went over to Gray, where I did traditional marketing, and I led the strategy work for CoverGirl. And then from there, I actually ended up going to Pinterest. I was one of the founding members of the creative strategy team. And it's really interesting because at tech companies, they think about marketing very differently than at kind of a classic consumer packaged goods, CPG brand, or at a retail brand. At a tech company, when you think about marketing, you have the core consumer marketing. So at Pinterest, there's marketing for the tech platform of Pinterest. And then there's also helping other other brands market on the Pinterest platform. So the example is when I was at Pinterest, I worked on brands like the Home Depot, and I worked on some of the more direct to consumer brands like Rothy's and like Dollar Shave Club and Zola. And so my experience really ranged, but I was really working on helping other brands market themselves. And then when I went over to Google, I actually switched over, and now I'm doing the global brand marketing for consumer apps. And so consumer apps is kind of a vague term at Google, but essentially what it means is I get to work on some of the biggest and most interesting products at Google. That includes Google Search, Google Maps, Google Photos, as well as Google Lens, which is a little bit less well known, but Google Lens and Gmail and Calendar. So I get to kind of work through a lot of different types of products, and I think it's just helpful to see a little bit about what my team is. So right here, I can show you, we are the centralized brand marketing team embedded within the consumer apps organization. I just got a text message. I'm not sure if you guys could see it, but my lead, his name is Marvin Chow, and he kind of oversees both brand as well as product. And essentially what we do is we drive brand love, and we do integrated strategic planning and partnerships and creative execution. So what I wanted to show you guys today was a little bit about the helpfulness campaign, which is really the consumer apps broader campaign that we do. I'm going to show you guys a couple of pieces of creative, and then I'm going to talk about video and how we optimize for video. So hopefully it'll be like this 1-2 punch of creative and then a little bit of marketing science. So as we think about the helpfulness campaign is essentially the largest campaign that Google is running across all of its consumer apps products. And it's a way to connect with users and show all of the things that people think about for Google, but in a way that they don't necessarily normally think about. So we oftentimes say that Google is like electricity. It's essential for your day-to-day living. Like, I don't know what I would do without Google Search or without Gmail or even Maps, but I don't always think about it and I don't always appreciate it. So how can we bring some of that emotion to life? And how do we think about things like Assistant as well as hardware in some of those pieces?
So Raashi, you guys are doing like those, I don't know how to explain your TV commercials you're doing, but they're kind of generalized, feel-good sort of TV commercials. Does that fall under this sort of brand or kind of under the area you're in? If you know what I mean, which ones I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Generalized feel-good TV commercial sounds exactly what my team does.
Okay.
did you see the COVID response TV commercial? Is that one of the ones that you're referring to?
It might have been. I can't remember the details, but it's like it's not really specific to any product of Google, or it's just kind of a very generalized sort of messaging. Yeah, to feel good, whatever. Yeah, that we're there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was most likely my team. It could have been our team in partnership. So when we think about consumer apps and my team in particular, one of the things that I think is really interesting is that essentially we connect all of the functionality of consumer apps together to give the master brand of Google a halo. So people love maps, and by talking about maps and the great functionality of maps, they'll start to love the brand of Google a little bit more, and sort of think about it as a helpful company. And so I'll show you a couple of examples. I think it'll be a little bit more clear once you see some of the creative. But one of the strategies that I just wanted to lay out here is we really think about like the cultural zeitgeist. And zeitgeist, here you can see the definition, the defining spirit or mood of a particular period of history as shown by the ideas and beliefs of time. So when we think about marketing at Google, Google has a target audience of kind of everyone. And so what's important about thinking about that is we need to use these cultural moments as a time where we can come up with messaging that resonates with a broad variety of different types of people. And so we really use the strategy of thinking about specific moments and cultural times to develop creative and use those as insights to make sure that we're creating something that really resonates with that particular moment. So this is a spot from the Oscars. We actually showed this last year, but I want to play it for you because I think there's a couple of moments that are really nice. And show you kind of an integration between a consumer app, which is the Google Assistant, and then some of our Google hardware. So I'm going to start to play it, but please speak out if the audio does not work for you guys.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal. Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hey, Google, open the pod bay doors. Let's go! Show me photos from last night.
Showing your photos.
Oh, no.
You should just go to City College. With your work ethic, just go to City College and then to jail, and then back to City College, learn to pull yourself up. Your lift has arrived. Everybody to do everything. Hello?
Are you ready?
Yes?
What door am I at?
Patio door. Police are on their way. See ya.
Show me the map.
Here you go.
Hey, Google, what's on my calendar today?
At 5:30 p.m., you have appear in Google commercial.
That's never going to happen.
Okay. Any quick reactions or thoughts before I kind of give or actually let me share some of the context. So I think what was really interesting here, so my role was to both come up with the brief for this particular spot, and then also work with the creative agency to develop that creative, make sure that product existed in the right place, make sure that the message felt on brand and right for the Oscars as a specific moment. And then on top of that, it was really important for us to think about a consumer engagement strategy, right? So how are we going to think about engaging people beyond just a TV spot? I think that we all know it's 2020 and we can't just think about TV. We need to think about social. We need to think about what are these other platforms. And so in accompaniment with this one TV spot, we also built out the full integrated plan. We actually developed the first Google TikTok campaign, which it feels like TikTok is everywhere right now, and people are, especially in coronavirus times, really taking to it. But at that time, we built a TikTok campaign where we encouraged people to use their Google Assistant. And then we also we created different video versions for different platforms. Like we thought about YouTube and how people wanted maybe shorter form content. And so we came up with a series of 15 seconds that were kind of like little snippets. And so thinking about the integrated plan is just as important as coming up with a really great creative spot. And I want to definitely highlight that. The other thing I'll say is this spot felt really right in 2019. Now it feels really weird as we start to see advertising kind of shift and change over the times of coronavirus. When you think about creative and when you think about marketing, it's really important to think about that cultural time. So we focus a lot on relevance and how we can make things interesting and relevant to that moment. We would never put something like this out into the world in this particular environment.
So can I ask you exactly why? What is it that is wrong about this, I guess, today? I mean,
Yeah,
I know
sure.
today we're looking at commercials and we're saying, oh my God, those people are so close. That's not reality. That was filmed. You know what I mean? But that's obvious. So I'm just curious, from your marketing strategy point of view, why is this wrong, I guess, today? I'm curious.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things we really talk about is being empathetic to our consumers. So how can we make sure that we are thinking about the state of mind that they may be? And we've talked a lot about like thinking about something funny or something lighthearted. And what we have found is that we've actually come up with a couple of different versions of things that fall within that range. But what we've found is that that's not necessarily being empathetic to the different stages that someone might be in. And so we work really hard to be thoughtful about what the state of mind is that the consumer is in. And because we are able to build custom creative for different scenarios, we always like to try and do that. So I can actually flip over to this healthcare worker spot, which is the spot that we did most recently, sort of in response to COVID. I deliberately pulled this square asset because this is essentially a TV spot that we built out, but then we made a couple of different cut downs and specific creative versions for Instagram, as well as Twitter and Facebook. So that I'm just going to play this one for you.
We stay at work for you. You stay at home for us.
So this one was just a quick little snippet of a version. I think we've talked a lot about this. We're starting to see that brands and advertisers are creating a lot of similar creative work. I think there's a little bit of, I don't know if you guys have seen the YouTube video, but it's essentially a compilation of all different brands and how their ads are starting to be very similar, like empty spaces, slow piano, rolling music, and then an ending that says we're all together, we're all in this together. So we want to think about avoiding that cliche and that paradigm, but we also want to be thoughtful and empathetic to the consumer that we're at and where they're kind of experiencing these types of feelings and where they're seeing this creative.
That's good because I am so sick of hearing brands say we're all in this together. Sick of this.
that and when they do the like sad piano and all that, and like we're here for you, and then they just do the classic where it's like 10% off. It just doesn't match at all.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate disconnect. So I think that in one of the things that we've noticed, and we've been doing tracking of all different brands and what kind of different people are starting to put out into the world and different brands are starting to put out into the universe. And one of the things that we found is that like sentiment changes around this COVID-19 timeframe, like so rapidly. I mean, I think that you guys have seen like great ads stand the test of time, but there's some ads where you see and you're like, oh, that was just only relevant 10 years ago and it doesn't make any sense now. What we've seen is that there are almost different phases of COVID-19. So this spot actually came out 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and we felt like it felt really right for that time. But maybe last week or even 2 weeks ago is when people started talking about this backlash. And so it's almost like this was okay at that moment, but then you fast forward 2 weeks and it's not okay. And it feels just a little bit more of the same. And so we're being really thoughtful about how you can adjust your creative and your marketing based off of that. I don't want to spend all of the time talking about COVID response because I think there's a lot of other stuff to talk about. But while we're on this topic, does anyone have any questions? And you're also welcome to use the chat functionality if that's easier.
Well,
So,
go on.
Go ahead. Okay. So I was kind of curious. You said like this spot felt really right 2 or 3 weeks ago, which makes a lot of sense, and sentiments are changing. Where are you kind of like angling for this kind of current, where it's kind of feeling like the end of the lockdown is somewhere soonish generally?
Yeah. We don't know, like, because timing is so weird. We actually have 3 different creative sprints that we're working on, and we're gonna kind of come up at the end of the week and take a step back and see what sentiment is feeling. The other thing we're realizing is that it's going to be different regionally, and sentiment will be different regionally. So, for example, in San Francisco, where I'm based, we just extended the lockdown for another month. And so, so I think it was so almost like an extension of this kind of time frame. And so we need to balance like some positivity with a little bit of a little bit. We want to be optimistic, but also be conservatively optimistic. And again, we are Google, so we have to be thoughtful about everyone across all regions. And so that's one of the harder pieces of it.
So let's see. I'm trying to think, which is the governor who extended, but there's a backlash. Is that Georgia? I don't remember which state that is. The one where she's having some issues because she was like tightening stuff, and you can't plant seeds or mow your lawn. Or
I think that's Michigan.
Is that Michigan? So like Raashi. Oh, sorry, I'm echoing here. Oh, I don't know why I'm echoing. Raashi, so like Michigan, maybe Raashi, can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Okay. Sorry, I was echoing. So for Michigan, who might have extended a month, are you guys looking that the sentiment is different there? So they're in the same situation, let's say, as you, where there's been an extension, but obviously the sentiment of the public is a little different. So will you vary? Are you guys at that point where you are, and I'm sure you are, you're smart enough where you're varying messaging perhaps there, so it might not be the same in San Francisco as there, even though you both just extended?
Yep. We're not to that point yet, but we will probably consider. So my team covers not only the US, but also global regions. So we are talking about like different messaging in places like China versus in places like EMEA. We haven't gotten down to different messaging in the States, but I think that will probably be something that we consider with smart micro-targeting in the near future.
Okay.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to share, because I know that we are getting a little bit tight on time and I want to leave time for introductions, is another piece of work that we actually did right before coronavirus happened. We all came up with this project for Women's History Month. And essentially we used the platform of Google Lens, which allows you to bring things to life through technology. If you guys don't have it, you should definitely check it out. It's a great tool. But let me play this video and then we can talk through some of the details.
What does it really mean to fight for women's rights? What does it really mean to fight for a more equal world? This partnership has been so incredible, both in bringing visibility to these issues and to these women, but also allowing these women to tell their own story.
So this is just a short little trailer of the experience that we did, but the way that we always like to describe it is Google Lens essentially allows you to have every photo be like a Harry Potter experience where you can bring that photo to life. And I think one of the things that our team was most proud about was this work was something that went to highlight the efforts of women that were defending human rights across the world. So not just in the US, but also in places like Brazil and Spain and also Africa. So I think that we're really excited about this work and the fact that we could use our technology and we can use the work that we do, not just for entertaining people and coming up with fun TV commercials or saying thank you for coronavirus, but also pushing forward and generating awareness for specific rights and sort of more human issues. So I think that was a really good kind of sampling of the type of work that I do within the global brand marketing team. And the last thing I'll just leave you guys with is that video is hard. We do a lot of video on this team, and it's recapping of experiential events, but then it's also TV commercials, and it's really hard. There's a lot of options. People think about TV first creative, and it's slow and expensive. I'm going to just go through this really quickly. But it's really important as we're thinking about the 60-second spot that we also think about what that 6-second spot is to drive efficiency. I'll send this deck around so you guys can have access to it, but we really want to make sure that we're optimizing for different platforms. So if you see, for example, on the left-hand side, you have the original TV spot, and on the right-hand side, you have optimized for YouTube. The differences are that we've included branding up front, we've had early product shots, we've pulled up all of the benefits, and we've added VO. And we saw that there actually was a significant improvement in consideration as well as feature awareness. And then like building all of these different types of versions for creative is slow and expensive. And so when we think about it, it's really important to have dedicated teams and partners for how to build these videos, and really think about instructions, to-dos, assistance and tasks, and then like entertaining people. So with that, I will open up the floor for questions. 3 minutes. 3 minutes left for questions.
So I'm going to jump in. So are you with the Google Lens? How exactly does that work? Are you guys determine? So I hold the lens up to an image, and then you guys have embedded information kind of attached to that image that starts being revealed to me. And where does that info come from? If I created the image, is it coming from me or is it coming from you?
So the technology essentially recognizes a specific image, and if it works in one of two ways. So the first is the consumer way. So as a consumer, I can take my phone and I can use Lens and scroll and like essentially scan any plant that exists out there. And what Google Lens will do is it will pull up all of the search results for that particular plant. So say you think this is a beautiful flower, you don't know what kind it is, but you want to know, it will give you all of that information. You can do the same thing for insects, for birds, for all of nature, and it'll give you that additional information, and it'll essentially use the power of Google search to help fuel the results. Now, if you're a brand, you can also develop Lens experiences, which is very similar to what we developed for that Living Portraits of Courage project. And with that, you essentially, as the brand, build your own lenslet. So we provide a flexible technology that allows you to essentially build a custom website. And you put in what that hero image is that you want someone to scan over. And then from there, every time someone sees that image, it kind of like does a little processing and then pulls up whatever that video experience is. So for the Living Portraits of Courage, you would be taking a picture almost of the portrait, the artwork that we had, and then the artwork would animate and come to life on your phone. So it's essentially like creating a version of AR, but the brand is completely in control of that experience.
Got it. So like Corona hard seltzer, which we're seeing everywhere, right? Because they're trying to deal with the negative perceptions of their brand name, unfortunately. So they could work with you where I could scan that can, and either it comes to life or whatever, or it just gives me information, nutritional information about it, or whatever. They could totally control what pops up and what experience I have. Yep,
exactly.
Okay. And is that, I'm just curious, how does that work with the brand? Is there a charge back to the brand to do that? Or, how does that process work, Raashi?
Yeah, so right now, lenslets are open to a limited set of partners, but we are opening them up in the next, I believe it's the next 6 months, that may be reprioritized as coronavirus product changes get updated. But the plan is to open it up. And so I'm on the consumer team, so I have a little bit less understanding of how brands would take advantage of it. But I do know that essentially you would just be able to use a Google Lens icon on whatever marketing that you have to share it to consumers. And I don't think that there is any type of like minimum ad spend. It would essentially just be an experience that you can build in partnership with Google.
So I mean, I guess I kind of see this taking over the QR codes in a way and scanning.
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Exactly.
Which, yeah, kind of a sexier QR code, I guess, right? A sexier way.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Right. Cool. Charlie, you always have questions, Charlie. You,
So I was kind of curious, you said it's kind of a general feel good, ad campaign is mostly what you focus on. What's I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of goals encapsulated in that, like, make people more likely to buy Google phones or Google laptops, whatever. Is there any, I guess, kind of more nebulous ones, like, Facebook and Twitter have been in the hot seat a lot? Is it kind of to help prevent that ball ever start rolling downhill?
Yeah, our key priorities are to drive brand sentiment, positive brand sentiment, but then it's also to drive product usage in the right way. So, for example, what we think about is daily active users, monthly active users, and weekly active users. For Google Maps, we really think about weekly to monthly active users, and for search we think about daily active users. So that's really what my team does, and that's because we focus on those consumer app products. I would not define the role as general feel good ad campaigns. No, but I think that that's a lot of what we end up doing as sort of an output, but our real focus is to drive brand sentiment and also to drive product usage. But it's a good question.
By that I meant more so like, here's all the things Google can do for you, other than here's our newest phone, here's all, it's more broad on your products, not just like,
yeah,
those terrible ads were just like a puppy playing in a field and then at the end it says brand.
Yep, I think that's totally right. Our role is not to drive Google Halo brand. Our role is to drive perception of those particular products, and so it's absolutely something to think about.
hey, Caitlin, I think, did Mona have a question that she put in?
Yeah, so Mona,
You should probably let Raashi go after that. Yeah.
yeah, so Mona wanted to know, what can a local guide expect since we can't do much with reviews and such, like Google Connect Live event?
Great question. Is that for within Google Maps?
I don't know.
Mona, I don't know, respond back quick in chat to her question.
Yes. Okay, great. Okay, that sounds good. Since you can't do much with reviews and such, Google Connect Live. I think a Google Connect Live event is definitely feasible. This is a little bit outside of my purview also, but I do know that Google Meet has just launched business features. So Zoom has sort of been like the buzzy thing of the COVID shelter in place experience. So I myself have done some Zoom calls with family and friends, but we do have a professional Google Meet experience that is now probably, like, if you think about it, it has higher levels of security and then also offers a lot of functionality. So if you're looking to connect with local people and have events, those are other ways to do it. We also have YouTube Live.
So is that taking over the old Google Hangouts, or is I mean, I used to use Google Hangouts like when I first moved to St. Louis to connect up, people like you. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have the consumer Hangouts version. That's really for like connecting, like me and you connecting just to catch up. And then we have the enterprise version, which is Google Meet. And the enterprise version has advanced functionality and more sophisticated kind of elements.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are there any questions, guys? Anything? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Ben, you don't have anything?
Oh, pressure's on now.
No, I don't.
Great, Raashi, we really appreciate it. And so can you just quickly tell us what kind of happened with you guys in terms of kind of being out there publicly because of COVID and how that kind of changed things, or not? I don't know, because you had mentioned that some things you used to be able to talk about, now you can't because of COVID, or
it's just like, for example, one of the big campaigns that I was working on was a lot of like a big social campaign and TV spot for March Madness. and then March Madness was canceled, and so the campaign was canceled as a
Okay.
result.
Okay.
So when we think about like this strategy of thinking about the zeitgeist and all of these big cultural moments, when those cultural moments drop, a lot of the reason for our marketing drops also. And so it's something that we're just working through.
So quickly, I just want to ask you a question, and I forgot. You had mentioned something before where at the end of the week, you guys will all assess where we're at kind of with, I guess, COVID or whatever, and then you'll figure out how to deploy strategy for that next week. Have you guys, and I'm assuming you guys have mapped out various scenarios where, so you're always right on top of it. So is that fair to say? And that's how you guys are kind of operating?
Yeah, and really like we're just kind of putting our finger in the air and kind of guessing, but we're trying to do all the research that we possibly can to get a sense of different scenarios. But I think we're just trying to stay nimble.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Raashi.
Cool.
Great.
Thank you.
Yep. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks at the conference. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.